first game we have coming up is kind of a little mini wallet buster and an uncommon game on the NES, and that's Ghost Lion. When you boot up this game, it actually says Legend of the Ghost Lion, so they changed it, I guess, for the artwork on the cartridge to make it look a little bit more poppy. So this game is done by Kemco, which they're known for just cranking out tons of just mediocre RPGs, and this game is no exception. The cover art of this game is fantastic. It has a girl in like athletic wear who looks like she's on her way to a Bon Jovi concert circa 1987. And I had no idea this game was an RPG when I went into it. I just assumed it was going to be an action game. But the premise of the game is that a lion attacked your village, and your parents have set off to hunt it, but they've never come back. So you have to set off yourself and save them. You can see right away that the main character of the game looks nothing like the awesome and totally rad girl who's on the cover of the game. Instead, it's like this 8-year-old girl who looks like she's on her way to Sunday school class. But the gameplay is just your standard RPG. The catch is that you summon spirits out of items to kind of fight alongside of you, similar to Pokemon, which is okay, and this predates Pokemon by a good bit, which is a nice idea. One of the strange elements of this game that really bring it down is that you don't level up through grinding. You level up instead by finding these shards hidden around the map and in the various dungeons. This causes a real issue because you can't grind to level up, which totally sucks because the random combat encounters in this game happen all of the freaking time, and there are huge difficulty spikes. The enemies dodge attacks like super frequently. It feels like they dodge 30 to 50% of all the attacks. Also, your inventory is limited. You have to be concerned with how many healing items you can carry, and the healing items don't level up. So the first healing items that heal for 50 hit points at the beginning of the game are the same ones you have at the end when you have a ton more health. So it's really easy to blow through all your healing items just to heal yourself. And also, some enemies hit you so hard that you can't recoup your health. Like if the enemy hits you for 200 damage every turn, you can't use 4 healing items every turn. You can only use 1, so you're guaranteed to lose at that point. Also, the enemies seem to go like 2 times for every one of your turns, which is really bad and can become very overwhelming. And to make matters worse, the run from battle option doesn't work. So whenever you try to run from battle, it says you escaped from battle, but the enemy tracked you down. And it goes right back into combat, and they get an extra turn on top of that. You get to the point where you go into a battle and there's no way to really win, and you become overwhelmed unless you know what's going to happen beforehand, which is extremely frustrating. The enemies always attack first. Even when you go back to the starting area of the game and you're like super leveled, the enemies will go first and they'll just bink you for 1 or 2 damage, which is terrible. And I really dislike that. On top of that, the companions that you summon, they lose their health from attacking. So they only have like an energy meter. When they get hit and they take damage for you, they lose health. When they attack, they also lose health. This leads to some serious balance issues with the game. As for the graphics are, I guess, fairly decent for an RPG on the NES. I mean, they look like any other RPG on the NES, more or less. And the music's fairly catchy. I enjoyed the music a lot. And I do like that this game is set in Africa, which is not something I was expecting to see. Even though most of the characters are white, there is some diversity in this game, which is nice to see. And I like that they try to do something a little bit different. But overall, this is just like a Nintendo Power game, as I like to call them. You really need a guide to make it through this game. The chances of you succeeding without knowing what's going to happen are very low. The save points are very spread out. And when you go into the dungeons, you could spend an hour or 2 walking around lost before you get the item you need to level up. And there's essentially a level up item, like I said, in every single dungeon. You really need to find those and find all of them. And some of them are located in very remote areas, kind of esoterically, and you really need a guide to make it through this. But the game is good enough to finish, you know, if you use a guide, which I have to admit, after about 8 hours into the game, I resulted to doing, and it really improved the experience for me. So I recommend doing that. So Ghostline was a fairly decent little RPG. It's not one of the best on the system, but it held up on there, and it's one of the best Kemco RPGs I've ever played. So I would say this game is like a 7 out of 10. I would play it if you're a fan of the genre.